They go and oppress women. Representatives to the national parliament coming from our 79 counties should be 79 women and 79 men. The day women attain the adequate level of participation in decision making in South Sudan, the country will see stability and sustained development beyond anything we can accomplish with our current political dispensation.
Sounds of the Week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. A new report by the African Development Bank says 92% of South Sudan's population is facing poverty as the country's economy declined due to drop in oil exports and insecurity, among other factors. Senior presidential advisor has proposed that every position, including constituency representatives in the national parliament, be divided into two in order to ensure the inclusion of women. And the Ministry of Wildlife, Conservation and Tourism has reported a significant decline in poaching, with figures dropping from 8,000 animals killed from February to April to 50 and 100 killed in recent reports. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Baria Johnson, and now the news in detail. A new report by the African Development Bank says 92% of South Sudan's population is facing poverty as the country's economy declined due to drop in oil exports and insecurity, among other factors. The report says poverty rose from 84% in 2023 to 92% in 2024, with the trend expected to further worsen this year. Emmanuel Joseph Akile files this report.
The African Development Bank said between April and July 2025 lean season, approximately 7.7 million people, 57% of the total population, are projected to be food insecure. It added the World Bank Economic Monitor Report 2025 projects that poverty in South Sudan will be universal by the end of 2025 unless current macroeconomic and insecurity trends are addressed and reversed. By May 2025, the bank said over 1 million individuals crossed into South Sudan from Sudan since the onset of the conflict in April 2023. Nearly 700,000, about 68%, are South Sudanese nationals, while the remaining 32% are Sudanese and other nationalities. Both the returnees and refugees face numerous challenges, including limited access to food, shelter, clean water, and healthcare services. Humanitarian organizations continue to provide aid. However, the available resources are far below the needs. The bank further reported that insecurity and persistent political uncertainty have had a significant negative impact on investors' confidence to invest in exploration and exploitation of oil and gas and mining sectors. In the report, the bank said fighting between government and rebel and militia groups and intercommunal and resources-related violence in oil-producing areas have swayed potential investors and discouraged scaling up of already existing investments. International firms which expressed interest in investing in blocks B1 and B2 in Jonglei State have either delayed, suspended, or withdrew, citing risks to personnel and investment returns. The bank added the mining, which largely remain artisanal and informal, has been affected by the conflict and insecurity. Licensed mining blocks have remained undeveloped or underdeveloped, and new geological surveys and exploration activities have been discouraged due to security-related challenges. Hoth Tot Chang is a senior national country economist of the African Development Bank in South Sudan.
As a consequence of the social indicators, poverty risen to 92% by 2024. This is based on the survey from the World Bank. It decreased from 84% to 92% because we have lost the source of our income, and also due to other internal challenges, including the conflict, the insecurity that has also impacted the agricultural sector. Based on the World Bank report, we find that the poverty indicators will continue to worsen unless and otherwise the challenges facing the country, whether internal or external, are addressed.
In its recommendations, the African Development Bank said the government of South Sudan should implement reforms to enhance governance, strengthen rule of law, and improve institutional capacity to support economic growth to achieve sustainable development. In light of this assessment, the following policy options are recommended. To enhance investors' confidence, South Sudan should establish legal clarity for investment and strengthen judiciary and ensure its independence. It added South Sudan should build transparent and accountable institutions by strengthening institutional capacities to enhance natural resources management and utilization. South Sudan should continue investing in institutional capacity and skills development to enhance institutional framework and promote rule of law. Other recommendation is that South Sudan should develop its mining sector by developing policies and institutional capacities in order to exploit mineral resources and transform the economy. South Sudan should also create business enabling environment in order to attract investment and leverage private sector financing for economic industrialization. To benefit from these vast resource potentials, the African Development Bank said South Sudan should add value to its raw mineral resources by building local refineries, which will create jobs and income for the local population. Reporting for iRadio News, Emmanuel Joseph Akile.
Thank you, Akile. Senior presidential advisor has proposed that every position, including constituency representatives in the national parliament, to be divided into two in order to ensure the inclusion of women. Kolmanyang Juk stated that once women achieve meaningful participation in decision-making processes in South Sudan, the country will experience a level of stability and sustained development that surpasses what is possible under the current political framework. He said to correct injustices against women, such as gender and sexual-based violence, all must advocate for women's leadership in all aspects of life in South Sudan. Cole went on to say the 35% affirmative action stipulates in the 2018 revitalized peace agreement is hardly enough, adding that women are also eligible to contest for the 65% of governance positions. He was speaking during South Sudan Women Leaders Conference held by Concern for Women and Children organization of the First Lady in collaboration with UNMISS Political Affairs Division in Juba yesterday.
I would even go further and propose that in the near future, every eligible position be split into two. One position for women and one position for men. A 50-50 ratio. This is because men, they cling onto power and they scare the women, so we have to be just. Give them 50-50. And we have money. We are not poor. If it is a matter of the budget, then we can also work for it. Because it's difficult really to convince men to allow women to contest. They go and oppress the hands. Representatives to the national parliament coming from our 79 counties should be 79 women and 79 men. The day women attain the adequate level of participation in decision making in South Sudan, the country will see stability and sustained development beyond anything we can accomplish with our current political dispensation.
In March this year, a network of South Sudanese women across Europe and America called on the South Sudan government to prioritize gender equality by ensuring effective representation and active participation of women in decision-making processes. South Sudanese women continue to face the burden of the prolonged civil conflict, although the country's leaders signed a peace agreement in 2018 which officially ended years of civil war. The peace deal is said to have failed in addressing the root causes of the conflict and prevailing intercommunal violence and attacks that leaves women and girls bearing the burden, with about 65% having experienced sexual or physical violence. The Ministry of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism has reported a significant decline in poaching, with figures dropping from 8,000 animals killed from February to April to 50 and 100 killed in recent reports. This is according to Colonel Charles Loku, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism. Colonel Loku says the decline in poaching was realized after intensified efforts by law enforcement agencies. The official further noted that African Parks, as a key partner, continues to support the ministry's efforts to curb poaching. He made the remarks on iRadio's Don't Show this morning.
Compared to the past months, I think the poaching is going down. In the month of April, March, and Feb, but down there, our statistics showed that over 8,000 animals were killed. And of recent, now we are getting smaller numbers, like 50, like 100, and so forth. So it means the law enforcement unit is doing its best to see that the poaching is reduced. And with the help of our partner, the African Parks, they also give us coordinates of poachers. If they see them in the air, they give us the coordinates, and our forces rush to apprehend them.
For her part, Regional Operations Manager of the African Parks, Dudu Dolgas Hamilton, stated that the organization collaborates closely with local communities to raise awareness about the consequences of poaching. She emphasized that this approach aims to transform community members into proactive conservation allies rather than participants in poaching.
We are also putting a lot of effort taking our community agents to go out to the communities and really talk to them about the law and the fact that this migration, first of all, is incredibly important to conserve. And also it's really important alongside law enforcement that people are aware of the law. So we've been doing a lot of work trying to raise awareness about the fact that poaching is illegal, but also about the huge negative impact that it can have on a migration like this, and to really try to make people to become active supporters of conservation rather than the poachers and the buyers and the sellers.
South Sudanese basketball star Kaman Malwaj has made history after being selected 10th overall in the 2025 NBA draft, despite facing visa challenges with the United in the first round by the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday night. The Suns acquired the draft pick through a high-profile trade involving NBA star Kevin Durant, Jalen Green, and Dillon Brooks. Helen Samuel reports.
Malwaj, who was born in South Sudan, is known for his towering height and nearly 7'7" wingspan, making him one of the most promising defenders in this year's draft. But while his talent is not in question, his journey to the NBA has not been easy. In April this year, U.S. President Donald Trump announced the revocation of visas for South Sudanese passport holders, including student visas, citing the government's failure to accept deported citizens. The move affected Malwaj, who was on a student visa and requires a special sports work visa, P-1, to stay and play in the U.S. The situation has raised concern over whether he will be allowed to play without restrictions. Despite the uncertainty, the NBA and its international department have expressed strong support for the young South Sudanese star. Troy Justice, head of international operations, told U.S. media they are working to ensure Malwach gets the chance he deserves. Before joining Duke, Malwach trained at the NBA Africa Academy and represented South Sudan in international youth competitions. During the last season, he averaged 8.6 points per game and helped lead Duke to the Final Four of the NCAA tournament alongside top American prospect Cooper Flagg. If the visa hurdles are cleared, Malwach is expected to be one of the top rookies in the 2025 NBA season, putting South Sudan once again on the global basketball map. Helen Samuel reporting for iRadio.
Thank you, Helen Samuel. You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News. The Director General at the National Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has called for a collective effort to diversify South Sudan's economy by investing in agriculture alongside oil production. He made the remarks following the release of a report by the African Development Bank on the economic status of South Sudan, which projects a growth rate of 12.1% by 2026, depending on stability in Sudan, which provides the pipeline for exporting South Sudan's oil. According to the report, South Sudan remains one of the most natural resource-dependent economies on the continent, with oil accounting for over 50% of GDP, about 80% of exports, and more than 90% of government revenue. This heavy reliance on oil has hampered efforts to diversify the economy and expand the tax base. Dr. George Leju, who heads the Directorate of Agriculture Production and Extension Services, noted that the country's economic growth has been marked due to both internal and external shocks. He said that South Sudan should not rely solely on oil, but instead enhance domestic production and strengthen the agricultural economy to keep pace with regional development.
And number 3 is the need of diversity to economic beyond oil. We should really be focusing our attention on natural resources besides oil so as to better our country economy. And the report analyzes a number of issues that is facing the country, why we are not coping up like the rest of the countries. And most of the highlights that have been put here is one, the economic growth has been characterized by volatility emerging from both internal and external shocks.
And finally, the Deputy Police Commissioner of Western Equatoria State, Major General Aboud Komoyangi, has died in Juba after a short illness, his family has confirmed to iRadio. Rose Komoyangi, who is a cousin of the deceased, said General Komoyangi died at a hospital in Juba on Wednesday last night after he was diagnosed with a tumor. Ross described his death as a loss to the family and the entire people of South Sudan and Western Equatoria State in particular. She spoke to iRadio this morning.
أبوي متنبه الساعة 12 مرقت في المستشفى هذا كله كان في 7-11 اجي حولوه في دكتور شاكر تنباري عنده ده ورم في بنكرياس ياها ما منامي أكل ما قادر ياكل جسم ده كله وارد بطنه ده كله مليان كابس وشغال في أمبيو ونايب موديس كان.
According to Rose, the late Major General graduated from the Police College of Sudan in January 1985 with the rank of second lieutenant. He was then deployed in Juba after graduation in 1985 in the Department of Migration and Passport. Throughout his career, General Komoyangi has served in Mundri, Anyambio, Western Equatoria State, and Terkeka in the different departments of the police. Late Major General Aboud Komoyangi is survived with several children. You are listening to iRadio News, and now to the regional and international news with my colleague James Atem.
Thank you, Baria Johnson. 16 people died during nationwide anti-government protests in Kenya on Wednesday, most of them killed by the police, the head of Amnesty Kenya said, a year after deadly demonstrations against the tax bill culminated in the storming of parliament. Thousands of Kenyans took to the streets to commemorate last year's demonstrations, in which more than 60 people died, with police firing tear gas and water cannons to disperse them in the capital Nairobi, according to local media and Reuters News. Elsewhere, astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla is set to create history by becoming the first Indian ever to set foot on the International Space Station. On Wednesday, Group Captain Shukla set off on the Exum 4 mission that he is piloting, led by former NASA veteran Peggy Whitson. Exum 4 includes Sulawat Usnaski from Poland and Tibor Kapu from Hungary. The crew were seen floating in the spacecraft on Thursday in a video shared by private firm Exum Space. They will spend 2 weeks on the ISS. And finally, a senior Hamas official has told the BBC that mediators have intensified their efforts to broker a new ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza, but that negotiations with Israel remain stalled. The comments come as US President Donald Trump said great progress was being made since Israel and Iran ended their 12-day war on Tuesday, and that his envoy Steve Witkoff thought an agreement between Israel and Hamas was very close. Israeli attacks across Gaza on Wednesday killed at least 45 Palestinians, including some who were seeking aid, the Hamas-run health ministry said. And that's the end of international regional news with me, James Atem. Now back to you, my colleague Baria Johnson in the studio.
Thank you, Atem. And now to the sports news with Emmanuel Joseph Akile.
Inter Miami have advanced to the last 16 of the FIFA Club World Cup after defeating a 9-man River Plate side 2-0 on Wednesday. The Italian Giants kept their cool to seal the win, knocking out the Argentine powerhouse. Meanwhile, Mexico's Monterrey also booked their place in the next round after thrashing Japan's Urawa Red Diamonds 4-0 in Group E. Germany's Borussia Dortmund beat Ulsan HD 1-0 to top the group and will now face Monterrey, the team that features Spanish veteran Sergio Ramos in the next round. Inter Milan are set to take on Fluminense of Brazil on Monday in Charlotte as the tournament heats up. Manchester City goalkeeper Ederson has dismissed reports linking him with a move away from the club, calling them 99% fake news. The Brazilian, who joined City from Benfica in 2017, is entering the final year of his contract and is currently with the squad in the US for the tournament. An Argentina 18-year-old midfielder Camilo Nuin has died during knee surgery. Nuin, who played for second division side San Telmo, previously featured in the youth academies of Boca Juniors and Independiente. The club says the cause of death is not yet known and has closed for the day in mourning. And finally, in Spain, Barcelona FC has announced its return to the iconic Camp Nou Stadium on August 10th, where they will host the traditional Juan Gamper Trophy friendly match. This marks the partial reopening of the newly renovated stadium after years of construction delays. The full completion of the Espai Barça project, expected by summer 2026, will expand the stadium's capacity to 105,000. That's all from the world of sports, and back to you, Baria Johnson.
This is iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here are the headlines once again. A new report by the African Development Bank says 92% of South Sudan's population is facing poverty as the country's economy declined due to drop in oil exports and insecurity, among other factors. Senior presidential advisor has proposed that every position, including constituency representatives in the national parliament, be divided into two in order to ensure the inclusion of women. And the Ministry of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism has reported a significant decline in poaching, with figures dropping from 8,000 animals killed from February to April to 50 and 100 killed in recent reports. That's the end of iRadio News. If there is a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287870. It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page, iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 1:30. I am Baria Johnson. Thank you for listening.